Rebels.
Greetings and welcome into the Sports Shuffle. We're talking about my crazy scribble for the Super Bowl of Suck because this actually means something to me. Um, I'm flying Ryan Gokers along with, as always.
Tampa Motor Mouth, Joel Verlin, counting down the few remaining minutes and hours of the regular season.
Yes. Let's start with the Damar Hamlin update because that has been the biggest story all week, the most important story all week. And frankly, it has been very positive since about, I don't know, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Damar Hamlin, last we had
Yeah, because he,
checked, it was coming off the ventilator a little bit, only down to 50% oxygen. So we really haven't updated this in a few days. So, Joel, go ahead and tell everybody where we stand now.
because then it progressed to he was moving in the right direction, and then just the most recently, I think within the last 48 hours, he was FaceTiming all of his teammates and just being himself, and yeah, just such a miraculous recovery when we were all remembering the pictures that we saw and the feed from football, everybody surrounding him from both teams, just sort of trying to protect him while they do CPR. Still, I think it is all burned into our minds.
Yeah, so originally he woke up, was holding hands with his family, but still had the breathing tube in. Yesterday, the breathing tube was removed. He talked to his teammates on FaceTime. They surprised the whole team. He had talked to a few players individually, said he loved them, basically gave them the big, the flex on them. And I feel sorry for New England this weekend. I really, really do, because Buffalo's going to come out with a team that's an absolute team possession to try and steal this game.
You want to talk about max motivation with an intangible factor? You have it right there.
Yeah, so they're going to have this week, they're going to have a number 3 patch on their jerseys to honor Damar Hamlin. They're going to, every team's going to have a pregame, I don't know, speech, some kind of talking points, a script given to the PA announcer in the stadium that we will see most likely with the first game here in about 2.5 hours. Reminder, there are games today on Saturday, 2 of them. Just basically wishing him well and thanking the NFL community and going over, those in recent days we've seen that kind of stuff. They're going to let all teams outline the number 3 on their field. So both 30-yard lines with either the Bills red or Bills blue in honor of Damar Hamlin. And so a lot of positive developments. It sounds like best case scenario is still on the table, and that is him to make a full recovery and be who he was before the incident, which if you are reading into it or looking into it, that could involve a return to football because he was an NFL player before that occurred. So very, very positive news on the Damar Hamlin front. Now, we've been following this. So his toy drive total is just under $8.25 million now. So the donations continue to roll in. The high donation right now, $25,003 from Jim Irsay in the Indianapolis Colts. I know I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of this, some of the donations I've seen come through, because it's kind of more in line with our show. But still, good to see the giving spirit is continuing for this young man as he is now looking like he is going to recover. At the very least, he's going to be able to live a very normal life by all accounts at this point. Whether or not he comes back onto the field, that's a mental thing. That's a physical thing. That it's so far down the line and so far down the level of priority at this point. But at the very least, it seems like it's on the table.
And it's amazing that even still, when you have all the goodwill out there, you can have people out there who, even in a situation like this, are sour grapes. I won't mention the name of the individual. I forget it, luckily for them. But in one of the groups that both you and I are in, somebody actually posted, and I'm paraphrasing, well, where I work, if somebody had a heart attack, we all wouldn't stop working. And it's like, you might want to read the room, dude, because you even had somebody after the initial post was like, you still have time to delete this. So, not
I'm going to say this. If someone had a medical emergency, not necessarily a heart attack or cardiac arrest, but a legitimate medical emergency, um, there's a pretty good chance that things stop. I mean, I don't see most people being like, "Oh yeah, Carol went down. Back to what I do every day, typing on the keyboard." Um, yeah, I don't know where you work. Maybe you need another job, man. But that seems a little off base.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's it. Like you never know. Literally, when you're following a story, you always have that one or two people who it's like, okay, I'm just a bit outside there.
Yeah, thanks, Skip Bayless. Anyways, yeah, Damar
Like,
Hamlin.
did you
This
did you see the TIFF, the latest one? It seems that you kind of. I think I'm glad. It sort of made me definitely glad that we're more of a conversational podcast, that we don't quote unquote embrace debate, because we're not spending the entire hour yelling at each other back and forth. I mean, I know you certain people tend to like that sort of thing, and I've tuned into it, both shows on different networks, but
can't watch it.
after a while, it just kind of gets old. It's like, stop
No, I can't
yelling.
watch stuff like that. Like, pardon the interruption. They go back and forth a little bit, but that's about as far as I ever could go. I can't watch that crap anymore. But yeah, hit that. I can't watch them. But
Is that like that old Weird Al Yankovic song? You can't watch us, dude. That was the parody of MC Hammer's. Of course, you can't touch this.
yeah, can't watch it. Yeah, very similar to it. Last note on the Damar Hamlin story, as we are basically able to kind of start moving away from this and back to reality, because it does look like he's going to make a full recovery. Worth noting that he recovered from cardiac arrest faster than it took United States elected representatives to pick a Speaker of the House.
Oh, good
I
God!
just want that to be said. No political bias or agenda. I don't care which side held it
Uh,
up.
can
It's
I
pathetic and sad, and you should all feel ashamed.
may I inject a thought that is neither party neutral? It just actually comes from the musical 1776, which, I kid you not, one of the songs that I promise audience, I will not sing any of it, but the part of the lyrics of the song are, "We piddle, twiddle, and resolve, and not one neat thing do we solve." And I'm like, it's amazing how true that still is.
Yeah, so 15 attempts, and it took longer for them to pick a speaker than it did for Damar Hamlin to regain the ability to breathe without assistance after being resuscitated on the field. Shame on
Could,
the House of Representatives.
could you imagine being aliens skirting by the planets as that happened? Oh, well, let's tune into their communications, their telecommunications, and let's see if they're
Wow,
an
look at them
intelligent
rally
being.
around this kid who almost died. What an inspirational group of individuals on this planet. Let's turn the channel. 15 times to pass a vote on a dude that we already knew was going to get the job? Are they idiots? What is wrong with it? Are This is a planet full of mental illness, isn't it? They're all messed up, right? Yeah.
Let's check this planet off, and we'll move on to the next galactic sector.
Yeah, why do you think we've always only seen UFOs and not any of them land? They know what's going on here.
They they
Anyways,
they turn on TMZ or some political channel, and then they go, let's quarantine this planet again.
yeah, it reminds me of the South Park episode. But we're not going to get into that. We're just happy Damar Hamlin is doing a lot better. Um,
Here, here,
yeah,
trying to
not
stay
gonna really,
trying to stay politically neutral here.
yeah, not gonna really go into the injury updates. There's so many people injured. There's so many people out. There's so many people just not
Oh
gonna really
my
play this
goodness
week
gracious!
because it's week 18 and it doesn't really matter
I,
for a
I
lot of teams.
I legit feel sorry for anybody who was in a league. Oh, let's do a Week 18 championship
I've
final.
got two. I've got two ESPN leagues that are two weekers,
Oh my
and
god!
honestly, the suspended, canceled game, which is the next thing we want to talk about, is the ramifications from this Bengals Bills now
So,
abandoned
so
game.
so many moving parts when you actually needed a multi-page statement from the NFL explaining three scenarios,
So yeah,
explaining 1 or 2 points, and then they even amended the initial rules that I think the Bengals and many people brought up. Well, what about this rule? over here that's in the official rules, and they're not following, but they amended the rules, so now they're doing something different.
Yeah. So let's go over that because that suspended now canceled game actually helped me in fantasy, which I'm not upset about. But so here's where we stand. The Bills and Bengals will finish the season with one fewer game than the rest of the NFL, barring anything outstanding or out of the ordinary or tragic happening this weekend. So we're expecting the Bengals and Bills to play 16, everybody else playing 17. The Bills had the inside track for the number one seed in the AFC. They had to win out, and they had it. So the Bills can still get the number one overall seed. The Chiefs need to lose today. The Bills need to win. They're the number one seed. But Kansas City playing Las Vegas with Jared Stidham doesn't seem like the stub the toe moment the Bills are hoping for. The Bengals had a shot at the number one overall seed. The Kansas City Chiefs would have had to lose, and the Bengals would have had to win out. So there's some ambiguity there. So if the Chiefs win today, the Bills win or lose. Actually, no. If they have to win. If the Bills win, the Chiefs win. AFC Championship game is going to be at a neutral site between those two teams. If the Chiefs lose, and the Bills or the and the Bills lose, neutral site, and if the Chiefs lose and the Bengals win, neutral site for the AFC Championship game. Very confusing. So yeah,
There's even a
there's more.
scenario. This is more of a scenario that's more confusing with the Baltimore Ravens,
So the
which
Baltimore Ravens beat the Cincinnati Bengals in week number 5. Because of the no contest game, the Bengals have already won the AFC North. They cannot lose that because they would have one less game. They would be one game ahead in the loss column, something we usually talk about in baseball. But if the Ravens beat the Bengals tomorrow, they will have swept the Bengals. And had the Bengals lost to the Bills, the Ravens would actually won the AFC North. So, should the Ravens beat the Bengals tomorrow, and the Ravens fall to the number 6 seed where they are currently slotted with the Chargers, I don't believe they can go up with a Chargers loss either. So, if
yeah,
they
because
win the game
the
and the
Chargers.
Chargers win, they will be playing each other in the first round of the playoffs.
Well, no,
That
there's one more component. The Bengals have to win a coin toss in order to
well,
get a home playoff game.
home field is going to be determined for that game by a coin toss because the theory being, well, if the Ravens win tomorrow, there's a good chance the Bengals would have lost to the Bills. The Bills are a great team. We can't give them home field when they could have lost the division. So it's a coin toss, whether it be at M&T Bank Stadium or Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. So, yeah, some oddities there. And yeah, there was a lot of other options floated out, but that's the big one. So very odd situation, unprecedented in modern times. There was something happened in 1971 where a player actually passed away on the field, and they finished the last 62 seconds of the game. But that I think the ramifications were different. And frankly, 50 years ago, there was a little less caring for the mental state of the players still on the field. But yeah, that's kind of where we stand right now. So the Kansas City Chiefs today have a chance to clinch the number one overall seed with a win. They are playing, I guess we'll go right into picks. They're playing the Las Vegas Raiders led by Jared Stidham. The Raiders are mailing in. Their season's done. Devontae Adams had a great first year, but we'll see what happens in the offseason with him. He came to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr's going to be gone. Josh Jacobs, this could be his last game as a Raider. He is a pending free agent because they did not pick up the 5th-year option on him in the offseason. So it could be a time of change for the Las Vegas Raiders. There's rumors about the Raiders going after Tom Brady. There's rumors coming out since last night that they're planning on going after Jimmy Garoppolo, which is personally somebody I think the Dolphins need to go after because of Tua's health issues. But the Raiders they're going to the offseason. They don't have a shot at the playoffs, and really their draft pick is going to be early, middle, first round. For the Kansas City Chiefs, they have to win to get the number one overall seed, so expect them to come out full force to win this game. The Chiefs are, frankly, probably going to be very lucky because they'll get the number one overall seed. They will get the bye week with a win, and that is about the only prize they can hope for because they're not going to have home field most likely in the AFC Championship game. Who gets this win?
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, one of the more easier games to pick because, of course, starting out with if the NFL announces that Buffalo Cincinnati game won't be replayed, which of course they did, KC will have extra motivation because now they can get, as you mentioned, the number one seed. Kansas City is the most motivated team in the NFL for week 18 English, as the Raiders did play hard last week, but the Chiefs are on a mission. As Kansas City at San Francisco was definitely one of the more impressive games of the year, but Andy Reid might want to help Mahomes break the passing record. He likes that whole history thing. So, yeah, and road division record for KC for Mahomes Magic. Yeah, that would be 15-0. So, slam dunk, I'm taking KC.
Yeah, you got to take Kansas City here. They are just a team that's really looking at the Super Bowl. They're not worried about a division at this point. They're looking for that one seed and to have a shot to go all the way to the Super Bowl. Of course, I can't really say home field throughout because they might have to go to Indianapolis or one of these neutral sites to play in the AFC Championship game. But I think Kansas City has a ton of motivation today to slam the door on the number one overall seed. If they lose, it changes the equation on Sunday with a couple teams, Buffalo and the Cincinnati Bengals being those two. But I think they have plenty of motivation on their own there. But I think Kansas City takes the win. And we move on to the second game today. This one's going to determine
Saturday
the
Night Feetsball.
Saturday night. This is going to determine the winner of the AFC South. Now, Tennessee 7-9 cannot make the playoffs as a wild card, but Jacksonville actually could. Jacksonville can still claim the number 7 seed with a loss if Miami, New England, and Pittsburgh all lose this weekend. So Jacksonville does have an extreme backdoor into the playoffs, but I think they would rather just take the number 1 spot in the AFC South, win that division, knock the Titans off, and finish the season at 9-8, something not a lot of people thought was possible at the beginning of the season. Tennessee seemingly has been on a losing streak all year long. It's only been 7 games, but it's 7
Been
games
a
out of the
long seven
season. That's a long
games.
time. Not many teams can say they've made the playoffs after a 7-game losing streak. I know Miami last year had a 7-game losing streak and a 7-game winning streak, and I think they would have been the first team to have made the playoffs with a 7-game losing streak. So this might be something that's unprecedented if they can get the win. Jacksonville, though, looks like a team that has truly figured something out. I'm not saying they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I'm not saying that they are a great team, but it seems like Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne have started to get on the right page. And it just feels like Jacksonville's got something special starting to show its true form. Going to be a very dangerous team next year and for the next couple of years to come, I believe. Don't forget, they're getting Calvin Ridley next year back from his suspension after a trade mid-season to get him from the Falcons. So Jacksonville could be a team that gets into the playoffs. They cause them havoc, maybe knock off the 5 seed who's going to have a better record. And they might face one of these top 3 teams and give them a scare. They've put up good fights. Tennessee, it's going to be Joshua Dobbs once again. He was decent against the Cowboys. I don't know if the Jaguars are as good as the Cowboys, but they beat the Cowboys. So big game. This is going to lock down the 4 seed in the AFC. If the Titans win, the Jags are not eliminated. If the Jags win, the Titans are eliminated. So who gets the win?
Yeah, it's a de facto playoff game before the playoffs, as Tennessee was outclassed against Dallas in that last Thursday night football game of the year. I think the Jags should dominate Tennessee for a second time, and I don't even think the return of King Henry will help because you have to look that Tennessee is off a 9 days rest and more since they didn't play anymore versus 6 days rest for Jacksonville. But I don't even think all that extra rest time will help them because Dobbs is still up for a rough night. And I think the score might be a little bit tighter than the last time the two teams met, but I think it still is going to be a Jacksonville win.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville's going to get the job done as well. Tennessee looks like a team that is just falling apart. I think Trevor Lawrence has a very big game in the passing department. I do think Derrick Henry's return is going to be helpful. I think that's what's going to keep this game relatively close. But Jacksonville right now, you got to believe in momentum at this point. Jacksonville's just been the better team the last 2 months of the season, and I think they get it done today. And then we move on to Sunday. Now, some of these games are going to be tough to pick because there's really not a whole lot to play for. This is one of them. Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Tampa Bay has already won the NFC South. They are locked into that number 4 seed. Todd Bowles is talking a big game. We want to keep going. We want to keep going. But Kyle Trask is going to dress for this game. That makes you believe Tom Brady's not going to play the entire game. That also means Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, some of the defensive key pieces are probably going to at least get more downtime tomorrow than they normally do. The Falcons, the only good thing for them, if you do have a Week 18 fantasy playoff, is that they're trying to figure out what they've got for next season. So Drake London's going to get a full workload. Desmond Ritter's going to get the opportunity to throw the ball as much as he can. They want to find out what they have. So I think there's more motivation for Atlanta to play well. Tampa's going to have the backups in at some point. Again, nothing to play for either team other than other than draft positioning for Atlanta. But at this point, you're looking late top 10 or maybe just outside of it. So who gets the win?
Yeah, because as you said, it's really a meaningless game, but the Bucks could use some positive momentum going into playoffs. They've kind of had an up and down last couple of games, and that's never good when you're trying to build the mojo going into the playoffs. And if they build enough of a lead, would rest the starters for as long as they can. A loss would not shock me, but as the Bucks really do not have anything to play for, and I think Brady's going to play until the game is comfortable. Then he sits, and if they go later in the game, if it was close, as I think it potentially could be close if you're doing the second and third stringers. But one thing to keep in mind is that Brady had never had a losing season in his career, and that could happen with a loss this week. Ritter has not looked good, even if Tampa Bay sits their starters. I don't think Atlanta can cover this. Is all of a sudden they've gone from a mediocre offense to just a ugh. What are you trying to do? As the line one I ended writing in the notes was at Tampa Bay +4. So yeah, I know Tampa Bay has been up and down, but you really have zero postseason ramifications. So just unless you really want some momentum, just sort of chuck the game, give your starters a rest. So going into the first round of the playoffs, they're actually a little bit fresher. And so
So
a bit of a toss up, but definitely have to lean toward Bucks. Atlanta has just not looked good.
yeah, Atlanta hasn't looked good, but I really think Kyle Trask is going to get on the field. They're going to try and figure out if he is a guy they can keep going forward. He's really never dressed. And if he gets on the field, I don't think Tampa Bay cares about the outcome of this game. I think a lot of the starters are not going to play into the second half, if not even into the second quarter. And at that point, Atlanta's just going to have better players on the field. So I think Atlanta gets the win in what is a completely meaningless game for Tampa Bay.
Oh,
They're
and
going to be playing Dallas either way, unless something crazy happens and Philadelphia drops to the 5 seed. But I don't think they really mind. And frankly, going in with one of their best offensive performances against Carolina being the last full game might be a good momentum thing to try and ride into the postseason, anyways.
oh, and can I relate to you a Sport Shuffle Audible? Possibly one of the dumbest comments I think I've seen in a while under the story that about Blaine Gabbert and the jet ski and his friend, or I think it was brother, that rescued the people from the helicopter. And they're going, he's amazing. He rescued 4 people. Some dummy actually posted, well, if the NFL would have let him, Kaepernick could have rescued 5.
Moving on. Kaepernick doesn't want to play football. If he wanted to play football, he would have a job because Nathan Peterman has a job and he's starting. We'll get to that game, not next, but the
Sam
game after.
Howell has a job. Sam
Sam Howell's a
Darnold has
rookie.
a job.
Sorry,
T.J.
Nathan
Walker had a
Peterman
job.
is garbage and he's got a job
Mitchell
and he's
Trubisky.
playing.
Mitchell Trubisky has a job.
Yeah, if Colin Kaepernick wanted to play football, he would be an NFL player still. I don't think his mental state is I want to
Carson
be an NFL player.
Wentz has a job.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there you can be like, yeah. Anyways, next up, New England at the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is a big game for Buffalo anytime it occurs. New England going to Buffalo, there's the tradition that when this game occurs, that the Bills fans throw, how do you say, rubber adult massagers onto the field, also known as Bildos. Yeah, also known as Bildos. They throw him onto the field because it is just what Buffalo does. It's a big game whenever New England comes to town because they want to beat New England. Now, add in Damar Hamlin. Add in the drama of the last week on the personal scale. The will our teammates survive, or are we going to really have a bad week? Or is he going to recover enough to give us a pep talk the Friday before the game? The lineman, I can't remember the name, but one of the Bills' offensive linemen came out and said, that's what we needed. We needed to hear his voice. We need to know he was good. They're going to come out on absolute fire. This Bills fan base is going to be absolutely rabid. And oh, by the way, if the Chiefs lose, the Bills can get the 1 seed with a win. So if you want playoff seeding drama to be infused into this game, you're rooting against Kansas City today. Buffalo has Josh Allen. They have Stephon Diggs. They have all these great players where Mac Jones and the New England Patriots struggled to beat Skylar Thompson last week. So the hope for New England is that Buffalo feels this is not an important game because Kansas City already has the 1 seed. I don't think that's possible. I want to also make a mention here that if Buffalo doesn't play their starters this week after only playing 9 minutes against Cincinnati, that's basically 3 weeks between full game to full game for the starters, and that's not how you want to go into the playoffs. Look at the Colts when they were 14-0, having sitting their starters the last 2 weeks and then not having a deep playoff run. So I fully expect Buffalo to want to be on fire this game for Damar Hamlin. I fully expect Buffalo to want to be on fire in this game just to torment the New England Patriots as the Patriots had done for them and the rest of the AFCs for 20 plus years. And I just think Buffalo is not going to let this be a close game. I might be wrong. I'm taking Buffalo because I've clearly built it up where that's not a surprise. I would be surprised if Buffalo won by less than 30 in this game. I think they're going to come out and want to beat them by 30 or 33 maybe to show Damar we support you. We're here and you're going to be the inspiration for us going forward. I'm taking Buffalo. Joel, am I out of line or are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Well, normally when we were talking, I think Wednesday, even going into Thursday before you had the FaceTime, gripping the hands of the family members, just talking with everyone, you really didn't know how Buffalo was going to respond
Yeah.
going into Week 18, as this game is on the surface definitely a hard one to pick because normally here I think the Bills are a slam dunk pick. Of course, after the Hamlin collapse, cardiac arrest on Monday Night Football, you had to wonder, even in the middle of the week going into Thursday, hard to assess their mental state considering Hamlin's positive, remarkable progress, as you have reiterated and discussed previously. I think I definitely have to pick the Bills, who have to be relieved. Now, the Pats are more motivated, I think the Bills are normally, but because of Hamlin making the progress, going in the right direction, conscious and talking, when he, as you said, he gave them a pep talk. I tend to think that not only do the Bills win, I tend to agree. I think they're going to have a small chance, small to medium chance to blow out New England so they can take the game ball back to Hamlin, give it to him, and say, number
Yeah. Yeah, number 3, here you go. As Joel disappears for a second, he'll be back shortly. Yeah, there's not much more to say about this game. New England does have the win and in scenario, so that does complicate it a little bit. But New England, they haven't looked good. They struggled against some worse teams as Joel is coming back here in 3-2-1. But yeah, anyways,
three.
game ball.
As I was saying, they were going to have a small to medium chance to really blow the bleep out of the Pats and then take the game ball back to Hamlin. Go number 3. Game ball is yours. Here you go.
Yeah, New England, like I was saying, does have the win and in factor, so it is a big game for New England. Buffalo's so much more talented than the New England Patriots are. And I agree. I think they want to put the boots to somebody. They're going to want to vent some frustration. They're going to want to drop that. I'll say this. If you ever gone through something really bad in your life and you do sports, the second you step on that field and you start playing and feeling free for the first time, it is unbelievable. And you're going to have a full team of that, possibly with the number 1 overall seed still available. So I just can't see Buffalo losing this game. All right, moving on. Minnesota going to Chicago. Nathan Peterman starting for the Bears. The
Oh,
Bears have a
oh,
shot at the number one
hey.
overall pick with a win and a Houston or a loss and a Houston win. The Bears could have the number one overall pick. I don't think it matters for them as much because Houston almost certainly going to take a quarterback. Chicago almost certainly will not be taking a quarterback. So if they finish second or first, it really doesn't matter too much unless they want to trade it away, which is a different thing. Minnesota still has an outside shot at the 2 seed. They cannot get the 1 seed anymore, so there's going to be number 2 or number 3 no matter what. But San Francisco plays later. They will not know the result of that game, so their intention is going to be to go win this game and hope San Francisco loses, so they're getting that 2-7 matchup instead of the 3-6. Chicago, no Justin Fields. It's going to be Nathan Peterman. That should be enough right there to tell you that Chicago's got an uphill battle. And then they're going to probably look ahead and maybe see what's going on with Travis Ebner in the backfield behind Khalil Herbert because David Montgomery is a free agent. They're going to look around and they're going to try and find out some stuff about this team, who is a key piece going forward and who could be let go in the offseason. A lot of cap space, a lot of draft capital for the Bears. So I think this is going to be more of an exploratory mission for the Bears to figure out what they've got going forward. Minnesota, tons and tons to potentially play for should San Francisco struggle later today or tomorrow night. Who gets the win?
Somewhere, somebody is streaming because of injuries. Nathan Peterman as their quarterback
Poor
in a
soul.
fantasy league. Our commiserations if that's you. As of right now, you're looking at Chicago has to be in one of the worst 6 game stretches in all of the NFL this season. They've lost by 91 points net in the last 6 games. That is terrible. Vikes need to win badly to bounce back mentally. And if they can't win against Peterman, folks, they are in big trouble with a capital T for the playoffs. So, got to pick Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota's the obvious pick here. Nathan Peterman does not instill confidence in anybody. The Bears are a bad team, and that's well known. They're on a 9 game losing streak. Yeah, go ahead. The Bears still suck. I know. Um, but Minnesota is a playoff team. They've struggled in recent weeks, so I think they want to get their game in line. I expect this to be a big Justin Jefferson game. He's going to be within 200 yards of the NFL record for receiving yards in the season. So I think it's 195 would get it. He's 194 back. I think Minnesota's got enough to play for that they're going to come out full force and try and win this game, and we move on. Baltimore and Cincinnati. A lot of the same feelings for Buffalo are there with Cincinnati, not as vivid because it wasn't their teammate, but a lot of the relief that they were worried about Damar Hamlin too.
Especially T. Higgins, I bet.
Yeah, T. Higgins. I mean, Zach Taylor was at the hospital with Damar Hamlin the night it occurred. So the Bengals, they cared, they were invested. They are very happy to see the positive progress as well. So that extra motivation is there. Not to mention the fact that you win this game, you guarantee your first playoff game is at home. It might still be against the Ravens. The Ravens might not have to leave town. But you want to make sure, actually, I believe if they win and Buffalo wins, this is going to be the first round playoff matchup. You want to make sure you win this game because you don't want the risk of having to go and play as the 3 seed a road game in the first round due to all the scheduling quirks that are going on. I expect both teams to come out fighting. It's not going to be Lamar Jackson, so it may not be Tyler Huntley even. He is not 100% surefire to go. Last I saw, that could be changing today. I'll take a look while I pass this over to Joel. But Cincinnati, a lot to play for. Baltimore only can be 5th or 6th with the standings with the Cincinnati. But if they do face off in the first round and they do win this week, maybe they get a home game next week, and that could be a big factor. Who gets the win?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one if you're looking at the records, but tend to think that the Bengals are in a similar place, maybe not in the same place the Bills. As you mentioned, it wasn't their teammate, but it's a strong night to be a part of, even if you're on the opposite side of the ball. And the Ravens need the win just as much, I think, if not maybe more. I do think out of both two teams, Bengals are the better team. The main question is, where are they mentally for Week 18? I think that cannot be stressed enough. I think that Cincinnati, as I said, is going to be less affected by the Damar Hamlin incident, but emotions can still affect you physically. And once again, you don't have clear motivation for Cincinnati in this game. But as you mentioned with the Bills, they didn't get in a full game. And I think that they need to get in a full game to get everyone back on their legs and back going. Uh, Also helping mentally as well as physically, because as you said, you don't want to sit that much before you have to raise your game for the playoffs. So Baltimore definitely has not looked good. I think recently, the last month, I've got to pick Cincinnati.
Yeah, Baltimore looked bad in the second half against Pittsburgh last week. That kept Pittsburgh alive in the playoff race. No Lamar Jackson once again. Sounds like he's going to be back for the playoffs. So maybe Baltimore is conceding that, if we get the 6th seed, we play Cincinnati next week anyways. I'm not too worried about this game. Cincinnati, I think, is going to come out again. They're going to be a little lighter because of everything that happened with Damar Hamlin, and he's recovering fine. There's going to be some positive vibes there with them. They are going to want to play that full game. And the fact remains they could still technically get ahead of Buffalo, I believe, with a Buffalo loss and a win. So there is some seeding implications there because right now that would be the divisional matchup, Buffalo and Cincinnati, and there's no home field conundrum there because they play the same number of games. So Cincinnati does have a lot to play for. Maybe New England can somehow rally and pull an upset, and Cincinnati can get that 2 seed. But all in all, I think Cincinnati gets the job done, and we go on to one of the biggest games of the week.
Hashtag sarcasm.
Somewhat. I mean, it does play into the future of the NFL, the draft, and who goes where. Houston at Indianapolis. Houston clinches the number 1 pick with a loss. Again, Chicago not likely to go after a quarterback. Houston almost certainly will be. So not the end of the world if they get the number 2 pick. The problem is, if they get the number 2 pick, Chicago could trade out of the number 1 pick to, I don't know, Carolina or to so another team that really needs a quarter, New Orleans, and they could Atlanta, and they can sneak into that number 1 overall pick and take the guy Houston wants. So for Houston, the franchise, the best thing to do would be to lose, but they're playing the Colts, so they do a good job of losing themselves. Houston has been competitive for the most part for the last month. They didn't look good against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville had a ton to play for. Houston, not so much. Indianapolis has been very, very bad. Both teams looking towards the future. Jeff Saturday looks like he's not going to be coming back. If he's smart, he wouldn't come back. He's going to want to go out on a high note. Lovie Smith, we don't know what's going to happen to him on Monday. Of course, Black Monday when they fire all the head coaches that are not coming back. Lovie Smith is at least someone whose name is being thrown out there. So is Mike McDaniel, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Houston, Indianapolis, 2 very bad teams, 2 very bad seasons, ready to be done. Who gets the win in Week 18?
Yes,
Who hurts their draft position a little bit?
this is what would definitely be called another meaningless game, but believe it or not that I'm walking on air as the old theme song from that old TV show goes, but Houston has played better other than the last week down the stretch. They beat the Titans, played the Chiefs and the Cowboys very competitively. It's hard picking the Colts even in this game, as Ellinger might be a might at a minimum. It's the same as Foles, might be a little bit of an upgrade. As yeah, just Houston is 2 different teams when they want to compete versus when they don't want to compete. As Indianapolis showed all of us last week, they have zero, zilch, nada, zip, nothing at all interest in competing, and are going to lock up the number 1 seed in the Indianapolis draft. I've got to pick Houston just because, oh my God, Indy is just garbage this year.
Yeah, I'm taking Houston too. I just don't believe in the Colts at this point. They haven't played well for so long. They're on their 3rd string quarterback in Ellinger, and it just feels like a game. The Colts are ready to fall apart. The Colts thought, I mean, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. The Colts thought they were a playoff team, and they're just not. So I think there's a lot of negative feeling. There's a lot of injuries on this roster. They're ready to move on. I think Houston wants to, I think they have more pride that they want to show off. And I think Houston, at the detriment of the long-term prospect of the franchise, possibly, I think Houston gets this win and moves out of that number 1 overall pick at the worst possible time. All right. Next up, speaking of third string quarterbacks going head to head, the New York Jets in Miami Dolphins with a game that has playoff potential ramifications, that has draft ramifications. The Jets are going to be starting Joe Flacco, Mike White out with the I believe it's a rib
Possibly,
injury still.
possibly has coaches your fired ramifications.
Yeah, possibly that as well. Um, they're not going to go to Zach Wilson, so they're going to put in Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was decent his two starts earlier in the season when Zach Wilson was out with the knee injury. Miami's going to turn to Skylar Thompson. They signed Mike Glennon. Teddy Bridgewater officially questionable. I think he's going to be more of an emergency backup type of thing. But Skylar Thompson's going to get the lead for the Dolphins. The Dolphins' path to the playoffs is a Buffalo win over New England and a Dolphins win over the Jets. So we both think Buffalo's going to roll New England. So it essentially will amount to Miami, get the job done, you make the playoffs. If not, then we look at Pittsburgh here in a little bit as they have the shot at getting in. Miami still has Tyreek Hill. They still have Jalen Waddle. They still have all these great pieces around this young quarterback. They did not have Bradley Chubb, Teron Armstead last week, and some of these other big-name key players that really would have turned that game against New England the other way. Skylar Thompson didn't look bad in relief. He did have an interception, but did lead a touchdown drive late in that game. The Jets... Well, they're the Jets. Do you really believe in Joe Flacco? Do you really believe in the combination of Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter in the backfield? Yes, they have Garrett Wilson, but their weaponry is not as strong. The defense is better than Miami, but Miami's defense has been playing better of late. So I think you look at this team as its weakness against weakness and strength against strength. And who gets this win?
Well, originally, before I heard the news of who was starting, I had picked Miami, but I flipped the switch because Miami is starting the third string quarterback at starting the third string quarterback. It's really hard picking them considering they are riding a 5 game losing streak, having losses against the Patriots and the Chargers, whom if they were at 100%, they could have beaten. I really hope that Stephen Ross does not overreact to the slump and fire another winning coach. This is because the Miami owner said that he will fire people, Mike McDaniels, two assistants, if
Chris Greer, the GM.
they don't make the playoffs. I just have really lost, and I know a lot of it is because of Tua Tagovailoa's injury, concussion, not being available. Offense is different night and day. I can't believe I'm picking the Jets, but good God Almighty, I'm picking the Jets.
I'm going to take the Dolphins. I'm a homer. Sue me. But I don't trust Flacco. I don't trust Skylar Thompson. I'm going to trust the weapons around them. Hopefully, Mike McDaniel, this offensive guru, is a smart enough guy to say, I got to find a way to get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle the ball. Let them make the magic happen on the outside or just using their legs. Something they can do. They can do little pop passes, ends arounds to supplement the game plan. And obviously, you got to get Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert going on the offense. And I think they're going to get that going the best they can. I think the Jets being already eliminated, their only motivation for this game is to try and knock out the Miami Dolphins. And I don't know if that's quite enough when you have a team that possibly has a playoff berth on the line. Skylar Thompson's going to get the full workload of snaps this week. I think it's the first time that's happened for him. So we've seen, I mean, look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco. He's a 7th-round draft pick, came in and has played solid football. Hopefully Skylar Thompson can do that for the Dolphins, but I think there's enough motivation for the Dolphins, enough talent around the Dolphins organization to get the job done and at least give them the chance of stealing that number 7 seed and possibly going back to Buffalo to play the Bills in the first round of the playoffs. So Miami's got a lot on the line. The Jets a little bit less, but don't ever rule out the I want to beat my rival motivation. If the Dolphins lose, they're actually 4th place in the division. So Mike McDaniel, after one season on the hot seat, I can't imagine they get rid of him for anything less than Sean Payton. But then there's that whole Sean Payton tampering Tom Brady thing that got him suspended in the first place. So who knows what's going to happen there. All right, speaking of Sean Payton, former team, the New Orleans Saints, at home against the Carolina Panthers this weekend. Both teams very little to play for. The Saints don't even have the number first-round pick. That is property of the Philadelphia Eagles, so every win they get just hurts the Eagles a little bit more. Carolina, blew a golden opportunity last week to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and have the division at their fingertips for this week, but alas, it is not meant to be. Both teams looking to turn the page. Alvin Kamara has a legal thing hanging over his head, so this might be the last time we see Alvin Kamara for the Saints for a little while at the very least. Chris Olave's had a pretty good first rookie season. The Panthers, they got a good ransom to get rid of Christian McCaffrey. They hopefully will be able to use that to piece this team together. They've played much better without him and, more importantly, Matt Rule. So the Panthers may be trying to figure out what they're going to be similar to somebody like Atlanta. They want to know what they have, what they can roll over to next year, and what they've got to fix going forward. Neither team wants a lot to play for other than the Saints and Panthers just playing for some pride and to have a better draft pick. So who gets to win?
Yeah, this one is. If you look at the records, you might say, well, New Orleans is the better team, but hold up, hold up, hold up. It's now a meaningless game. But Wilkes, as an interim coach, I think definitely has done a better job than Allen as a full-time coach who started the year, and I think he should be getting canned fairly soon. So this could be his last hurrah with the Saints. As key thing to look in this one, you're looking at the quarterbacks, Dalton and Taysom Hill, while they have their moments and their flashes of brilliance. Yeah, by and large, looking at the total package, I think Sam Darnold has been looked extremely good and is the better quarterback. He even had a shot in the last couple of seconds in the game against Tampa Bay of winning. So that tells you he's definitely competitive. And for that reason alone, I know Lattimore is back in for the Saints and definitely made a difference. And I know New Orleans stunned Philadelphia last week, but got to pick Carolina. I think they're the better team overall.
I'm going to take the Saints here. I just think I think the Panthers have too many holes on their offense and defense overall. I think New Orleans is a team that we expected better things out of, and maybe they got Andy Dalton and Dennis Allen. But I do think there's enough good pieces. You saw Taysom Hill be relevant the last few weeks. Alvin Kamara's been okay. Chris Olave should have a decent game. We saw what Mike Evans did against Carolina. That secondary is not great. That's one of the things they have to fix in the offseason. So I'm going to take New Orleans. When you have two bad teams, nothing to play for, anything can happen, but I'm going to lead with the home team in the Saints. All right, now, Cleveland at Pittsburgh could have massive playoff implications as well. Pittsburgh's road to the playoff, a Buffalo win over New England, a New York Jets win over Miami, and a win over the Cleveland Browns. For what Joel is picking, they would be in with a win at this point because you've got Buffalo and the Jets winning. I have the Dolphins getting in because I'm a homer, and I'm probably wrong. That being said, Pittsburgh, 8-8, at home against a huge long-term rival. First game against Deshaun Watson. First time he's gone to Pittsburgh, which I can't imagine is going to be a positive experience for Deshaun Watson. Yeah, we don't have to go into all that again. Pittsburgh has never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. In fact, they've only had one game in Mike Tomlin's tenure where they've been eliminated from the playoff contention. One out of, I think it was 256 games that they've played under Mike Tomlin. They've already been eliminated from playoff contention, and this is not it. Pittsburgh needs a win. Najee Harris has gotten back on track. He had a plate in his shoe that was removed, and all of a sudden he could run better. Imagine that. So keep that in mind for fantasy drafts next year, that maybe it was just an injury that helped Najee, held Najee back early in the season. Going to be a tough day for Nick Chubb and this Browns offense. Pittsburgh's defense is fantastic, and they have a ton to play for. Cleveland, they're trying to figure out what they've got. They think they have a special unit now with Deshaun Watson going forward, but the season was a lost cause as soon as he was suspended for 11 games. Pittsburgh, again, wins. Dolphins and Patriots lose. Pittsburgh gets that 7 seed to get steamroll. Make the playoffs. Totally not going to get blown out in the first round if they make it like last year. But Pittsburgh has a shot to make the playoffs, something we couldn't have said, 4 or 5 weeks ago. We thought they were dead, done. No, not going to happen. But they're still alive, so who gets the win?
Yeah, this was definitely another tough one to pick, as Pittsburgh can give Mike Tomlin not only a winning season, but if things bounce the right way for the Steelers, a playoff appearance. Cleveland, of course, is unpredictable, winning against Tampa and the Bengals, but also bad losses. Pats and Saints. Pittsburgh's motivation should be enough to at least give the Steelers a shot at the postseason. If they win the game, Tomlin, I know, very fringe outside, but should be in the Coach of the Year. Yeah, maybe not literally, but definitely deserving. He managed to get a winning record and a chance to make the playoffs with that team. Uh, Absolute shocker where they were, as you said, dead, dead, dead 6 weeks ago. And as an interesting factoid from all sports culture, the Steelers have played one game, the 256 under Mike Tomlin, where they have been eliminated from playoff contention. Yeah, I know Cleveland has had some upsets here and there, but I have to go with the Steel Curtain.
Mike Tomlin's not going to be coach of the year, but you're right. He should be considered. I think you're going to look at Doug Peterson for the Jaguars. You're going to look at Dan Campbell for the Lions, Brian Dable for the
Dable.
Giants, and uh, blanking on the name, Pete Carroll for the Seattle Seahawks. Those four, I think, are going to be your most likely. But Tomlin should be in that group because this was not a team that anybody expected to be this good.
What about
Uh,
Todd Bowles from the Bucks? Hashtag
no,
sarcasm. Yeah.
no, he's not in it. Yeah, I think that's the ones you got. Maybe Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings could sneak in there, but I think we expected good things from them. I'm going to take Pittsburgh as well. I do think they give themselves a shot at the playoffs. I think they fall short because of Miami. But that being said, Pittsburgh, lots to play for. Mike Tomlin's going to have this team fully ready and fully motivated to go, and they're going to go in with a win and in mentality. Whether or not that works out long term and gets them into the playoffs with the other results, they can't control it, but they're going to go in with the right mentality. Cleveland, they're done. They know they're done. At this point, that draft pick's not even theirs. It's Houston, so they don't have a whole lot to play for one way or the other, and I think that shows. All right, next up, let's see, I misspelled Philadelphia. Philadelphia hosting, as I try and do it again, the New York.
Spelling.
Yeah.
Eh.
We're going to host the New York Giants this week. The Giants are locked into the 6th seed, so this is a game that has ultra high stakes for Philadelphia. Win gets them the number 1 seed. With a loss and a Dallas win, they don't even win the division. So it's a pretty big game for Philadelphia. Fortunately, I would expect the Giants to sit some of their studs, at least in the second half. Expect Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones to not play past halftime because it doesn't matter. They're going to be playing San Francisco or Minnesota, whoever finishes as the 3 seed, the first round of the playoffs. No matter what, that's locked in, cannot change, will not change. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts. Questionable. I would expect him to play. This is a huge game for Philadelphia. If he can get in, and Philadelphia could bench starters in the second half if this game gets out of hand. They did it the first time. If they get up, 24-0, 30-6, something like that, they could pull Jalen Hurts and say, we've got the bye. Let Gardner get in. Don't want to risk that shoulder any further. But Philadelphia has a ton to play for. The Giants might do it out of spite. Try and just beat Philadelphia just to knock him down a peg and hopefully knock them out of that number 1 overall seed. That would be, I think, fun for the Giants fans to say, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Joel, who do you have?
Yeah, hopefully the Giants coaches have talked to Thibodeau and said, by the way, just advice, just back off the snow angels, sir. As Giants really, as you said, have nothing to play for. The Eagles have their eagle eyes on number 1, and it could be a measuring stick type of game for New York Giants against the number 1 seed in the NFC. Players really have rallied around Dable, so definitely, as you mentioned, he has a shot coach from the year easily. And if Philly even gets Hurts back for 75%, I have to say, win is lock. I know Danny Dimes has been playing out of his mind. He's helped fantasy managers win big time from the playoffs. But yeah, Hurts, greater sign than Danny Dimes. So I'm going fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah, I got to take the Eagles as well. I do expect the Giants to be pulling the starters at some point, which is unfortunate because the Eagles haven't been playing great the last couple of weeks with Gardner Minshew. It would be nice for them to get a full game with Jalen Hurts to see how it's going to go, but I think it's going to be good enough to get the win and get that number 1 overall seed, which brings us to the other NFC East game, the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, the only NFC team to miss the playoffs as they have no shot of getting in.
They're still not in the playoffs?
No, they're not. So they will be starting Sam Howell to try and upset the Dallas Cowboys, who have possibly the number 1 seed and the NFC East division to play for. It might be a case of scoreboard watching for the Cowboys. The Eagles get up big. They could start pulling starters as well. That being said, Dallas, I think, wants to finish high. They want to win this game. I think they would be 13-4 with a win, which is a pretty good wild card record, if I say so myself. And Washington is, again, they're starting Sam Howell because they want to figure out what they've got going forward. I think there's a lot of concern over Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke at the quarterback position. If they decide Sam Howell's not the guy, you could see this team try and move up and get a quarterback in the draft to reset this franchise. They're not bad. They just don't have a good quarterback, it seems like, is their mentality. Big ramifications for Dallas, nothing for Washington. Who gets the win?
Well, if anybody finishes high, they better hope nobody gives them a random drug screen, but a bunch. But as of course,
Wah, wah.
wah, wah, as Dallas will be motivated depending upon what happened with Philly, but I still expect Dallas to go all out. If Philly blows up the Commanders, Dallas may just rest some folks if when that occurs. Howell, of course, announced, as you mentioned, as the starting QB, as he thinks there will be a struggle this game versus a very good Dallas defense. The Dallas is going to be playing at the same time, of course, as the Giants Philly game, so max motivation. And even if Dallas does pull some of the starters out in the second half, including Dak, I think it's very comfortable with Cooper Rush. We remember what he did
Yeah.
when Dak Prescott was out, very not more than serviceable, very competent, and a super stud in fantasy football. That definitely surprised some people in the second half. And I think Dallas is not only going to get the win, I think they're going to get the cover.
Yeah, I think Dallas is going to win this on defense. I think they're going to have really good field position for the most part, and possibly a defensive score with Sam Howell throwing the ball on the Washington side of things. And they do have that max motivation. Again, if they look up at the scoreboard at halftime and go, "Oh, Philly's up by 4 scores," maybe that they pull some starters. But at that point, I think Dallas will have a big enough lead where they could survive it. Cooper Rush is still a competent quarterback. The defense is still going to be very good. So I think Dallas gets the job done. And we move on to the Los Angeles Chargers and the Denver Broncos. This game could have no meaning for the Los Angeles Chargers. If the Ravens lose, the Chargers are the 5 seed no matter what. So there is a chance that the Chargers will know this game means nothing and limit their starters. I think Herbert gets at least a quarter, and Keenan Allen, they'll play him for a little bit just to get him some work. But overall, if this game means nothing, they're going to come out early. So that's a big risk in picking this game. Denver's going to play with reckless abandon. They're going to want to try and win. They don't have their draft pick. They don't have any reason to lose, other than that they're bad. The Chargers, if the Ravens win, have to win this game to stay in the 5 seed. And the 5 seed is a much better position because the 6 seed would be playing Buffalo or Cincinnati, depending on how everything works out. The 5 seed is going to play the Titans or the Jaguars, whoever wins that division. The Jaguars are hot. The Titans are not. But the Jaguars are dangerous. The Bengals or the Bills are lethal. It's a whole different equation. So you want that 5 seed. If the Chargers already have it, they're going to sit their guys. So when it comes to picking, that's what makes this difficult, because if this was a week 14 matchup, it's Chargers all day, moving on, no analysis needed. But if the Chargers play the backups, are you still going with the Chargers, or are you going with Broncos country? Let's ride.
Yeah, because the or Broncos country, let's hide, is the key thing here. Is likely, as you mentioned, Los Angeles Chargers will have zero motivation going into this game. So don't be shocked if Denver gets their fifth win. If you don't really have anything to play for, you want to rest your players, you want to heal them up, get them ready for the playoffs. Yeah, just sort of like you said, quarter, maybe stretch it out to a half, and then rest them so they can sort of chill out as the game is meaningless. Hey, Denver wins. Doesn't really change anything. So I think I'm picking Denver just because the Chargers. Hey, I'm
One
switching
of those
sport.
LA teams that starts with C.
I'm switching sports. So it's okay.
Hey, remember the Seattle Mariners got a false start penalty this year.
Okay, yeah, but the Chargers, like, I just think they sort of, don't really care much about this game, much like I'm apparently not caring about which team I'm talking about. But yeah, I think Denver ends up winning a meaningless game, and they get all pumped up, yay, pound their chest. But yeah, guess what? You're still not going to the playoffs. So I'm just going to pick Denver because Chargers don't give a you know what.
I do think the Chargers are going to play their starters for at least a half, and Brandon Staley seems like the kind of guy who's going to. He's a momentum guy. I want to make the key decision. He goes for it more than anybody on fourth down, all that stuff. So I kind of think even if this game means nothing, the Chargers do play the starters a good portion of this game, and as a result, I think they get the win. The Broncos have nothing to play for. Last time they went to play an LA team, it was the Rams, and they got dismantled. So. I'm going to take the Chargers. It doesn't feel great because this could be a game of backups versus starters, and in that case, you pull for the starters. You think the starters are going to be better, but I'm going to take the Chargers. I do think they'll play their guys for as long as they want to, and it's going to be longer than you think. So, anyways, next up, this one has a big ramification on the night game. Seattle hosting the Los Angeles Rams. With a win, Seattle keeps their playoff hopes alive and eliminates the Detroit Lions. If the Packers lose to the Lions, then the Seahawks would be in the playoffs with a win. The Rams have been playing a lot better lately for the most part. Seattle does not scare a lot of teams, so maybe this is an opportunity for the Rams to just kind of flex and be like, yeah, I know we had a bad year, but we're still the champs. We're still here. With a Seattle loss, Green Bay Detroit becomes a win and in style of game. So that's kind of cool too. Seattle has done way better than anybody expected. I think I predicted them as the number one overall pick next year because we thought Geno Smith and this offense, they're not going to be very good. The Rams we thought was going to be a playoff team, and not so much. So these are two teams that did not meet expectations, one for the positive, one for the negative. Who gets this win?
Yeah, as the key factor is you're looking at the Rams had a great game versus the Raiders, but other than that, Baker has kind of been he had the power up charge when he was traded, but then it's kind of faded. First game, maybe second game, then a little bit more pedestrian, and I think Seattle has so much more to play for, obviously. Then when and if they win, they then need to become the biggest Detroit fans ever for Sunday night football. So, yeah, that's just it. Rams are bad, not a good team. I'm going Seattle as a. Hopefully, they reverse some of the inertia that kind of has been going in the opposite way lately.
I'm going to take the Rams. I don't trust Geno still. I kind of think the moment is going to be too big for him here. This is also Bobby Wagner's return to Seattle for the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams have been playing better. They don't have a great defense against tight ends. Right now, the Rams' best weapon is Tyler Higbee, so that's a benefit for the Rams. And Cam Akers has been great the last month of the season, so I think they're going to be able to run on the Seattle defense and get the job done there. The defense for the Rams has been a lot better lately than it was early in the season. I think they'll put a cap on what the Seattle offense can do, and I think they pull the upset that sets up a very dramatic Sunday night football game that we'll get to shortly. All right, moving on. The last game in the late window. Arizona at San Francisco. The Cardinals, nothing to play for. Another Super Bowl team pick that went awry for me. San Francisco with a win could be the number one overall seed, depending on Philadelphia and Dallas. At worst, with a win, is the number 2 seed and play the winner of the 7th seed, whether it's Seattle, Green Bay, or Detroit. Arizona, 4-12, ready to turn the page. Cliff Kingsbury on the hot seat for sure. They're going to look to see what they've got next year. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out, possibly already played his last game for the Cardinals. Only time will tell. No James Conner. It sounds to me like Arizona's going to be playing backup. San Francisco's going to be starter. So not a surprise here. San Francisco is my pick. Christian McCaffrey's going to play. Elijah Mitchell coming back. It seems like the Niners are getting healthy and stronger, where the Cardinals are getting less healthy and weaker. Who you got?
Everything depends upon if Philly wins, but I still fully expect San Francisco to go all out like Dallas. Arizona's defense has definitely stepped up, but the 49ers have a chance at number 1 seed if they win. Of course, Eagles lose, locked in at number 2. Otherwise, who does number 2 work for? But yeah, all you had to do was just look at Arizona versus the Bucks. Not exactly what you would call super stellar offense, and still, offense did that to them. And this offense is so far beyond the Bucks offense. So I think it's going to be a blowout by halftime. Arizona's not a good team. I'm going San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco stomped Arizona when it was their normal backup Colt McCoy. Now they're on the fourth stringer David Blau. I don't expect things to get better. I think San Francisco takes care of business similar to how they did the Bucks, where they were up 4 touchdowns by halftime, and they can coast from there. Brock Purdy though needs the snaps, he needs the repetition, he needs that game action. He just needs to come out of this game healthy. So I think they're going to play the starters, or at least some of their starters. Maybe Christian McCaffrey comes out a little early, but most of the starters, I think, are going to play the vast majority of this game until it is just out of reach. And it's good job, kid. You did what you need to do. Let's go to the playoffs on a 10-game winning streak. But San Francisco is going to get the win. I just can't see a way Arizona comes back and wins. Now, we go to the Sunday Night Football game. With Joel's pick, Green Bay can make the playoffs with a win. If they lose, Seattle will get in. With my pick of the Rams, this is a win and in game. So the winner of this game would be the 7th seed. Going on, we would predict to play San Francisco. Detroit was 1-6 at one point. This team was dead in the water. They've gone 7-2 the rest of the way, and they stubbed their toe against Carolina a couple weeks ago too. So this could have been Detroit's to lose. Green Bay 4-8. They were down against Chicago at 4-8, pretty bad in the game, and came back to win and have won 4 in a row to get to this position. It looked like both of these teams were completely out of it for the playoff picture, and now there's a chance this is the most dramatic game of the weekend because it's for the only playoff spot, that in Tennessee, Jacksonville. One of these teams could be going home while the other goes to the playoffs, and depending on the result, it could be either one of them. So, a very interesting setup. As far as a rooting interest for most people in this country, I would say they're probably pulling for Detroit, the underdog, the little team that could. I think if Detroit gets in the playoffs, it's going to be pretty tough not to give Coach of the Year to Dan Campbell. Um, I would say at that point you're probably looking at Campbell or Dable as your front runner there. Green Bay, though, veteran leadership in Aaron Rodgers, a coach that has gotten into the playoffs multiple times. This team is red hot. The defense is starting to turn it on. The special teams has been truly special the last month or so of the season. So a lot of positives on both sides. You've seen the offense go crazy for both teams. Defense has been better. Who gets the win?
Yeah. I know the NFL has definitely been criticized, flipping and flexing Detroit Sunday Night Football, but what a way to close out the Week 18 schedule. Still feels weird to say that, Week 18. Detroit has had an amazing season. I agree, definitely. Coach Campbell should be in the Coach of the Year discussion. But motivated Rodgers, I think, better than motivated Goff. I have to pick GB, and Christian Watson has to want to play in this game, regardless of how hurt he is, with how important it is for Green Bay as just Green Bay's and Detroit's biggest of the regular season. As in games below 32 degrees, Goff was 2-1 straight up, but in one game against Green Bay, he lost 32-18. The other question one has to ask is, how good is Green Bay? They beat Chicago, L.A., Miami, but he had
He had a
two.
concussed to at the
Yeah,
helm.
so I mean, I don't know how much you can count that. And in Minnesota, you never know which Minnesota is going to show up on any given Sunday. I do think Green Bay is on a mission. They have flipped a switch. And I was listening to satellite radio last night, and I heard one of the folks say that, yeah, you just look at Green Bay's record in December and January. They dominate. So I know you have a lot of people pulling for Detroit. I know they could easily win it even at Lambeau Field. The Tennessee Titans proved that earlier in the year, but
That was the last win for the Titans, by the way.
yeah, that's pretty sad for the Titans. But I've got to go Green Bay. They're just two complete different teams from the middle of the season when they look pedestrian and almost mortal, and now all of a sudden it's like they're like the Pac-Man when you get the power ups, and they're gobbling down the ghosts. So got to pick the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to summarize this game is everybody's rooting for Detroit if you're not a Packers fan, but everybody expects the Packers to win. So I'm going to take the Packers as well. Jared Goff and this Detroit offense has been much worse outdoors and on the road in the cold. So I think that plays well into the hands of the Green Bay Packers. I just think that Green Bay, between the coaching and the veteran leadership on both sides of the ball, has a little bit more experience and a little bit more skill in this arena. Being at Lambeau, that's not going to be good for Detroit as well. That's going to be a raucous environment. Night game's going to be extra cold, most likely. And unfortunately for Detroit, I think a magical season for them is going to finish 8-9. But I think if nothing else, it gives a little bit of confidence into going into next year. They're going to finish third in the division at 8-9 if this occurs, have a third place schedule, and be a dangerous team going forward. I think there's a lot of positives you can take out of the season for Detroit. I just don't think a playoff appearance is going to be one of them. All right, so with that being said, I've got the Dolphins and the Packers as the 7 seeds, respectively. You've got the Jets and the Packers as the 7 seed, respectively. We will see how it all turns out going forward. We have a game in an hour and a half, Kansas City and Las Vegas. So, Joel, let's go to final thoughts real quick, and we'll start with you.
I have actually a very short final thought. I know you're shocked. When Damar Hamlin woke up, one of the very first things he asked a doctor was, "Did we win?" Doctor had an absolutely fantastic reply. The doctor replied, "You won. You won the game of life," and that's my final thought.
Yeah, that also goes to tell the competitive spirit of an NFL player, Damar Hamlin. And honestly, I don't think I was surprised that was his first question. And he still had the tube in it, so he actually had to write out, "Did we win?" on here. Before I get to my final thought, Super Bowl of Suck update real quick. Super Bowl of Suck, not a big surprise here. Going to come down to Broncos versus the Bears. The Steelers and Cardinals actually had fairly decent weeks in week 17. So Bears, Broncos, your Super Bowl of Suck Super Bowl. We'll see who wins. Joel, you want to make a pick on that? Broncos,
Who?
Bears, to the suckiest of all.
Uh, I think Bears.
It's got to be Bears with Nathan Peterman, right? Like, it's got to be the Bears. Anywho, I do want to call out that on Thursday, when the league pretty much put out, this game's not going to be returning. This is over. We're moving on. No Cincinnati Bengals, Buffalo Bills rematch or restart is going to occur. That was the day a lot of fantasy leagues decided what they were going to do with their championships, with their prize pools, with the trophies. And I am encouraged to say that a lot of leagues that I'm in were either determined already or came to, for the most part, amicable agreements. There's one exception there, but I'm not in the commissioner's seat of that, so I'm not too worried about it, and I'm not involved. But once it was determined that, hey, this game's not resuming, the go get the stats when they play it is not an option, the let's not roll it to week 18, they determined who was going to win. They determined who was going to get the trophies and the prize money. A lot of leagues are determining co-champions, which is fair. And some leagues are saying, hey, you were ahead, you won. The positive of this is on Thursday, I was looking through the Damar Hamlin GoFundMe, and Jalen Hurts should be a go for the Eagles, by the way. Just breaking. I was looking through the Damar Hamlin donations, and you can put a message. And on Thursday, I saw a lot of $800 from the Fantasy Football League, whatever the name was. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Fantasy Football League. The Sports Shuffle fans. Fantasy, not that we did, but we don't have a pay-in. But we were seeing league after league, champion after champion donating their winnings, something that, they've worked hard for. You don't win a fantasy championship by accident. So to see that these people put money on the line to get the winnings and say, I'm going to donate my winnings or the entire pot. I saw several $1,200 donations. That means $100 buy-in by 12 people, all donated. All the prize money donated to Damar Hamlin's toy drive. So I thought that was really cool. A good way to finish off the fantasy football season, especially if hey, we didn't really get a chance to find out who the true champion was in a lot of leagues. So it was kind of just a nice touch to see. And also seeing Tom Brady, the Colts, like I said, Jim Irsay, and Andy Dalton, some other players donate to the cause was very cool as well. It's almost at $8.25 million. I would love to see it get over 10, but I don't know if that's going to happen at this point. So, with that being said, that's the Sports Shuffle. Last week of the regular season, we'll be talking playoffs. We'll be finishing up Super Bowl Suck next week, and yeah, it's starting to
Shorter,
be the time
shorter,
where
shorter picks and shorter recaps.
yeah, I think next week is a 2 week or 2 show week because we have the big recaps and the playoff implications and the picks for there's a lot more there. And then we might be down to one after that. We'll have to see how that goes. I know at some point we are going to transition to one show a week, and then we'll get into the off season and it'll be a little less routine because there's just not as much going on. But yeah, football is it's fleeting. It doesn't last anywhere near as long as you want it to, even though it does last a pretty good amount of time relative to baseball and some of the other sports. But yeah, it's the last week for 18 teams to play, and then the last 14 will go on the journey to try and win the Lombardi Trophy in the Super Bowl in Arizona this February. Time to breathe and say goodbye. Although I am looking forward to not having to look at a fantasy lineup for a little bit. So I've already got the spreadsheet started for 2023 fantasy outlooks and to try and track where players go and try and get a little bit better. We was looking at my top 10. We might go over that at some point. Not as bad as I thought it would be. A little rough at the top, but sometimes you got to look for backwards to go forwards, and that's what we're going to do and try and get better for next year as the season goes on. Hopefully, Damar Hamlin will be out of the hospital in the next few days. Love to see him at the first Buffalo Bills home game as maybe a surprise appearance kind of thing and just really ramp that crowd up, which if they're playing the Dolphins, I'm not going to enjoy. But hey, I think the Bills have a lot going for them now with the whole team and destiny narrative. So all of that being said, it's time to say goodbye. And I am Flying Ryan Go Crystal along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
So enjoy the last full week of football that you'll have until preseason starts again.